Welcome to the Her Story Circle podcast, the podcast that brings you the extraordinary tales of everyday women who are changing the world. I'm your host, Gertrude Mache, and I'd like to acknowledge traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today. I also like to pay my respects to elders, past, present, and emerging. Every week, we dive into the lives, challenges, and triumphs of women from all four corners of the globe. We're here to inspire, enlighten, and connect, sharing stories that uplift and empower. So grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and join us as we explore the incredible journeys of women shaping our future. This is Her Story, where every woman's voice matters. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Her Story Circle. This is Gertrude Mache here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia. And today I am graced with the presence of yet another fascinating woman. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our tribe. Please tell everybody your full name, where you're based, and share your story with us today.
Hi, I am Dr. Sage Breslin, and I'm coming from South Coastal New Jersey in the States. So I want to tell you a little bit about my journey. 3 years after my divorce, I found myself accepting yet another invitation to talk with my ex-husband. I sat next to him on a bench, perched atop a cliff, and I listened and listened and listened. And at first, he was soft, almost charming as he begged for another chance. And then it shifted to all the ways in which I hadn't shown up, hadn't apologized, ran, or refused to be accountable for my part in the disaster that was our marriage. I didn't want to listen anymore. Numbly, I rose and I walked to the stairs leading to the beach below. I descended. Then, despite the fact that it was December night and I was fully dressed, I strode into the sea. Oddly, it felt warm as I moved deeper and deeper into the waves, as if compelled by some invisible siren. I was waist deep when I heard a voice screaming in my head, "Get out!" It was the first time I'd heard that voice in a long time. And without wasting another minute, I turned around, plowed through the icy water, raced up the steps past my ex, into my car, and tore home. The reality dawned on me as I drove. I thought that the only way I could silence his voice was to end it all. It never occurred to me that all I had to do was start listening to my own voice again. I lost myself in that 13-year relationship. He conjured up a truth and spoon-fed it to me, demanding that I swallow, slowly but surely blinding me to the fact that it was poison. He would say things like, "How could you possibly leave me and the kids behind to lead a retreat? We can't do this without you." Or, "Those women aren't really your friends. They just want you to take care of their kids." Or, my favorite, "You're never going to make the kind of money I do. Why don't you just close your practice and come help me?" This kind of language can make you question yourself, your reality, and honestly, it can make you insane. It can make you bypass relationships that are healthy and choose people who treat you like dirt, because that's what you come to think is normal. He wasn't the first person to treat me that way. He was just the last in a long line of soul suckers who twisted the truth to subordinate and control me. My abusers would say things like, "The sky is green." And if I responded, no, the sky is blue," I was begging for a fight. When they said the sky was green, my life depended on commenting on the beautiful shade of green it was, or face belittling, criticizing, and gaslighting. Turning off my inner voice became a matter of survival. Believing their warped reality meant giving up on mine. my voice, my inner knowing. When I met the man I later married, he didn't seem abusive. I fell for the tall, dark, handsome man who charmed the socks off me. He told me he was a doctor, but apparently now he worked as a financial advisor and not a very successful one. He told me he was a world traveler, but it was always on somebody else's dime. He pretended to be wealthy while owing the IRS $100,000. This is what narcissists and soul suckers do. They feed you consumable lies so that you'll fall for it all. But once you're hooked and the mask falls away, you begin to see the truth. But if you point out the discrepancies, you become the problem, not them. In the beginning, you can't imagine that they're dangerous in any way. Hell, they seem like your long-lost soulmate. But when you see what's behind the mask, what they're capable of, it's so frightening that you learn how to comply with every demand. The very idea of bucking the system or listening to your own truth, it becomes terrifying. The notion of listening to yourself and your intuition so you can get out, it seems impossible. Eventually, I did get out. Not everyone does. But those years, they took a toll. During the marriage, I couldn't have taken a breath, much less stopped to listen to my body. I had 5 kids, 5 cats, a practice full of patients, and a soul sucker to manage. But after the divorce, when I finally could take a breath, I began to experience very disturbing symptoms. I went to doctor after doctor, and each time I was told there's nothing wrong with me. The tests all came back normal, but I felt like I was dying. I was covered with tiny bruises. I ached into my core, and I could hardly stay awake at work. But no one would listen to me. 16 months after I walked into the sea that night, I finally found a doctor who listened. So she repeated all the tests that came up normal. And a week later, she validated what I knew, what my body knew, and what my intuition had been telling me for years. I had bone marrow cancer. I developed a cancer not like any other woman that I knew, not a cancer that could be surgically extracted, but a cancer at the very root of my being, not just in my bones, not just in the blood that flowed through my veins, but in the very marrow of my existence. It wasn't an accident that my body waged war on me in a way that I couldn't deny. My body had been shouting the truth at me for so long. And for the first time in my life, I listened. In life, there are tons of people expressing their opinions, voices that aren't your own. From childhood, even if you don't have abuse or trauma, we're trained to sit down, shut up, and listen, be seen and not heard. It's no wonder how easy it is for us to learn to ignore our own voices, our own inner knowing. But what if your inner voice, your intuition, was the only way to protect yourself from users and abusers and even cancer? I thought tuning out my inner voice would keep me safe, but it destroyed my life and it nearly killed me. When I started listening to my inner voice, everything changed. My body and my spirit had been sending me signals over and over again. They whispered, they shouted, and they became what I call divine 2x4 therapy. By listening to them, I was able to find myself, to recover my voice, and return my soul back to the driver's seat. The more I listened, the clearer and more unmistakable the voice of my intuition became. I decided I was going to live, even with this ravaging disease. I chose to become the wise warrior I was at my core and advocate not just for myself, but for others. I started sharing my journey with women I knew. Then I shared it publicly. Friends returned to my side, applauding me for finally getting out. My children began to thrive as they watched me return to life and take the lead again. I allowed my intuition to guide me 100% of the time. And then I found an unbearable lightness of being that I hadn't felt since I was very small. I stepped back into my power and embraced my sovereignty. During my journey back to myself, I discovered some really unique tools that helped me feel much more grounded and freer. And as I reclaimed myself in my life, I realized I had to share those tools and gifts with other women just like me. Smart, funny, highly accomplished women that were leaders in their companies, their communities, and families who'd been silenced and consumed by narcissists and soul suckers. I created a community to hold women and support them while they reclaimed their lives. What I observed was miraculous. I watched woman after woman rise up from her desperate disconnection, from her isolation, from her helpless, hopeless abyss, from her silence, from the depths where she'd fallen, into presence, into passion, into power, and into the arms of her tribe. Eventually, the gifts and tools that came to me were organized into a 10-step program called the ROSE system for restoring old soul women. The first and most powerful step is something ever so simple, but took me nearly 50 years to embrace. So if you've been derailed and decimated by toxic circumstances or relationships, you just have to realize one simple thing. It's not your fault. But it is your responsibility to listen to yourself now. I'm going to take you through a brief exercise. So if you're willing, take a breath and let your eyes close. Focus your attention on your breathing. Now allow oxygen to fill your lungs. Then let yourself exhale slowly. With your next breath, turn your attention to your heart. Then exhale. Notice the layers of protection you've placed around your heart. And as you breathe into that space, watch the layers peel away bit by bit. Notice what lays beneath all that protective outer coating. Feel the soft strength that rests there. This is your core. Now, as you breathe, listen. Listen to what your heart, what your soul, what your core have to say. Don't judge it, don't criticize it, don't ignore it. Just listen. Take another deep breath and let your eyes open, but forget nothing. Narcissists and soul suckers depend on your silencing this voice to gain access to your service, your validation, your agency, and your power. When you're in touch with your intuition, they lose that access point. When you make a steadfast commitment to yourself and to your soul, you become immune. When you step back into your sovereignty, you become unstoppable. That night, wading deeper and deeper into the water, I thought the only way to break free was to end my life. Turns out the only thing I needed to end was my silence. I didn't need to lose my life. I needed to lose the version of me who silenced herself and didn't listen to her inner voice. So if there's one thing that I can leave you here with today, it's this. The voice that you're ignoring, it might be the one trying to save your life. So listen.
Wow, what an incredible story. And such a beautiful reminder to all of us, Sage, on how we get lost sometimes. We stop listening to that inner voice. There's so much going on in our lives. We forget to tune into the essence of who we are as women. And yet we know that voice, we know that feeling. Now, I want to take you back to that moment when you walked into the sea. What were you feeling in your body in that moment?
Honestly, Gertrude, I think I was feeling nothing. I was so outside myself. I was so done. I just didn't want to. It's not just, I didn't want to listen. I didn't want to hear anything. I couldn't tolerate a single second more of that sort of implosion and that absence from myself.
It's interesting that you pulled back, though. So what was happening in your life that led to that breaking point? where could you see that this relationship wasn't working and you weren't listening?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I think I'd seen it. I mean, I think I'd seen it all along, but I couldn't see my way clear of it. And, even, I mean, just a small aside, I was able to divorce him after 10 years, but I couldn't get him out of the house for another 2.5 years. So even once I'd, really gotten the courage to exit, I couldn't exit. And I think that made everything worse.
Yeah.
And by then I had, as I know it, I had already begun to become sick. And I just felt like everything was turning away. Everything was coming down to this, to hell. That's what it felt like. My children were suffering. I was suffering. I couldn't see a way through it. I was then not feeling well enough. I didn't feel like myself. I felt like I couldn't earn as much anymore. And honestly, I think that one of the biggest turning points was realizing how much my children were suffering. And that whatever I had trained myself to believe about him being their parent, their father, it was just a lie. It was not real. I mean, yeah, he was biologically their father, but he didn't have their best interests at heart either. I mean, that's what narcissists are. Children become pawns in the game. They don't really attach. So, I think it is, once I saw my children suffering, I think it snapped something in me.
And that's the thing, right? You end up doing it more for your kids than for yourself. You could have stayed in there, but when you saw the impact on the kids, that was a breaking point. Now, what did people not see about your life behind those closed doors?
Oh my gosh. I mean, they just saw the shell of me. They saw the mask I learned to put on. My grandparents are Swiss. And so, they saw the diplomat. They saw the woman who managed it all. And I wasn't just managing, my life or patients' lives. I was also managing the neighbors' lives and friends who needed help. And I did it all until I broke. They didn't see what he was saying or doing behind the scenes. He had like many narcissists, a great sort of charming demeanor to the outside world. And, he would even talk me up in front of people. Oh my God, she's brilliant. She's so amazing. She's such a great mother. And as soon as the door was shut, the gloves were off and I was to blame for everything, under the sun and more.
Man. Now, what did your body start giving you signs? When did it start giving you signs that something wasn't right?
Yeah, it was actually just before that day I walked into the sea. It was, really not too much before then. I had been tired, but I think I've been tired since I became a mom, and I ran my own business. So it was always a multitasker. So, but the kind of fatigue was the kind where I would get to about 3:00 and I couldn't drive home. I couldn't focus enough of my attention to get home, to know that I could drive safely. And no matter how much rest I got, it didn't change anything. I was just exhausted to the core. I think there were other things. The bruising was really a weird thing, but then I just kind of thought, oh, well, maybe I'm low in iron, maybe it's just that. And then I did finally have this crazy cardiac event, actually directly after a therapy session with my ex-husband, as I was trying to finally get him out of the house. And my blood pressure went up to 210 over 105. And the doctor was afraid I was going to stroke out. So they said, the ER immediately. And then for the next 8 weeks, they were chasing these crazy symptoms, and nobody was even looking at these very basic blood tests that they'd been drawing over and over and over and over again. I think I had the $1 million workup, and they finally were going to release me from the hospital after an angiogram rather. And they had sent in the social worker. This is the time when, well, it's because you're crazy, right? It's because you're depressed. And he said, there's nothing wrong with you. You're just depressed. Every single, test has been normal. And the hospitalist was the one who came in, and she was there to discharge me. And she said, they've done 7 CBCs, and every single one of them, I've just been looking at them. I don't know that anybody ever looked at them. And I said, uh-huh. And she said, well, your white blood cell count is circling the drain. I think you might have, your bone marrow might be compromised. And they were the ones that referred me to then the hematologist, who did these tests and told me a week later, they're all normal. And it took me 16 months to finally find a doctor who repeated all the tests and said, they're not normal. You've got bone marrow cancer.
That is so easy.
Yeah. But, I was used to people telling me like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. Right? Medical gaslighting and gaslighting, they all felt normal, not good, but normal to me by then.
Yes. Wow. And this is the thing. And you have to listen to your body when it's saying something is wrong.
Yes.
So what shifted inside you in that moment in the ocean?
There's a phrase I use with people when they're trying to say like, oh, then this amazing coincidence occurred, or, oh, then, this occurred. And I've just learned to say, and I'm very spiritual, not religious. I just say, and then God walked into the room. That's what it felt like, that all of a sudden I was finally connected to the divine again. And I could hear this clear voice, stop, get out. This is not, to have walked into the ocean on a December night in California when clearly the water was probably at least in the 40s, and it felt warm to me. And I just moved deeper and deeper and deeper until I heard this screaming in my voice, stop, get out. And as soon as I turned around and I was trying to plow my way through the waves, I then felt just how cold it was. And I realized, oh my God, I'm going to die from hypothermia. I don't get out as quickly as I can. So, to me, I do. I feel like just God walked into the room and said, you're not done yet. Get the heck out of here. You need to start listening again.
Oh, gosh. Now, how did your children respond? And what did that teach you?
I was really surprised. I think so many of us, we stay for the kids.
Yeah.
We just frock a hoo-hoo, because I didn't realize how deeply my children were suffering, nor some of the awful things that happened when I wasn't around. And so when I sat them down and I said, this is it. He is not to come into our house again. I'm changing the locks. You're welcome to have him come visit you at school, or if you want to go out to dinner with him, but he is not ever going to come into this house again. And my children, including my son on the spectrum, all just said, well, okay, we understand. He's been a real fill in the blank. And he's treated you horribly. And, we understand exactly why you don't want him here. And that was that.
And we think the children don't know. They know more than we actually realize, right?
Absolutely. I mean, they knew more, they'd experienced more. There was so much hidden from me that, I mean, it wasn't just that I wasn't listening. There was a lot hidden from me as well. And
Mm.
so it was excruciating, honestly, once all of that changed. When I was able to move all of his things out into storage because he was out of the country, because that's the only way I could get it done. One of my sons went with me to a consignment shop to pick out some things to replace. And he came back and with me. And when we put everything up, you know, new mirrors, no arch, and this table, that table. And he said, "Oh my gosh, Mom, this feels so much lighter in here."
Oh,
And I thought, oh my gosh, you know, what I
oh,
didn't know that they were experiencing. It
oh.
it was very, very painful, but it was also very validating for the decision I was making for myself and for them.
So, what was the hardest part of rebuilding your life after leaving?
Well, um, you know, I divorced, then it took 2.5 years to get him out of the house. And then by then I mean, it was only a year. I worked my bum off just because, I mean, when he was out, he was out. He told me, threatened me, and said, "If you ever leave me, I'll never give you a dime of support. Not for you, not for them. You just do it on your own, little missy." And so I had to work long hours to try to earn enough to keep the house, to keep everything rolling forward. And I worked 6 days a week during the pandemic. And that was probably what really caused my cancer to just ravage me. And then I was told shortly thereafter, a year into the pandemic, I was told I had to have bone marrow transplant. And
Wow.
the hardest piece of all that was, you know, I just thought, you know, I'll do this thing. It'll be fine. It'll kind of be like, you know, medical summer camp. No, I mean, they, the oncologist said, you know, first you have to survive the transplant. And I had complications. The woman in the room next to me died. And,
Man.
you know, so when I got home, I didn't realize how terrified my children were that they were going to lose the only parent they had. And when I came home, you know, I'm bald. I had a complication, so I couldn't walk. I couldn't stand on my own. And I came into my room that first night. They said, "Mom, are you okay?" And I said, "I'm okay. I'm really glad to be home." And here's my big burly kid who carried me up the stairs. He's like, "No, but are you okay? Like, does this mean you survived the transplant?"
Oh,
I was just, you know, and I started sobbing and I'm like, "Yes, I survived," you know?
gosh.
So, I mean, it was hard emotionally, I think, to feel
Mhm.
things for them as well as try to recover. And it was way slower recovering than I had expected.
Yeah.
But honestly, I think once I was able to kind of find my space with them and find my voice again, and then begin to share, you know, kind of what I'd learned with others, then I think it all just sort of clicked into my new reality, you know?
It started to make sense.
Yeah.
Ooh. All right. So my last two questions for you are a bit of a thought experiment.
Okay.
The first one, I'm going to teleport you back to that younger woman, the young woman who didn't know whether she should stay, whether she should leave. She knew something was wrong. What would you say to a woman who knows she needs to leave but hasn't yet? What three nuggets of wisdom could you give right now to somebody who's at that point?
Yeah. You're not alone. It's not your fault. We're here to support you.
That is so beautiful. Yeah, a lot of women think that they are alone, that this is a struggle that nobody else will understand. But there's so many other women who've gone through this. I
Yes.
love the fact that now you are just supporting and empowering women to find their sovereignty as well.
Yes.
Last question. Let me teleport you into the future this time. And
Okay.
we are going to go and sit with a 90-year-old you. Maybe she's sitting in her rocking chair, surrounded by her children, her grandchildren, whoever is with you at the end, or knowing you with science and technology, you're on a dance floor somewhere. If we could go into the future to meet this wise woman who has led you up until this point, what will you say to her when you finally meet her?
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. I heard her voice actually when I was a teenager and I was going through a really rough time. And I used to hear as I was walking from my home to where I swam with a swim team, I would hear it. And it sounded like an interview with an 85-year-old version of me. And the first thing it did was it proved to me that I could survive what was happening to me. And the second thing it did was it gave me a direction to go to. Yeah. And I would love to thank her for being there, even when I was that young, way before, all these crazy toxic relationships. So, yeah.
Oh, wow. The reason why I love asking women that question, Sage, is that a lot of women don't even realize the wise woman is already in us. That she is that quiet voice, that whisper that says, go left, go right,
Right.
go. And we look outside of ourselves for solutions and answers, and we forget to go within.
Yes, very true.
So what I do is I like to share a little game that I play where I tune into the energy of who I am becoming. We all know her. We've all experienced her at some point in our lives. But I go into my meditation and prayers at the end of the evening, and I have conversations with her.
Mm-hmm.
And if I get really stuck, I ask a simple question like, so what is the next step?
Yeah.
What is the next step? And I sleep on that question, right? And you wake up in the morning, you're in the shower, and you get those light bulb moments where you know exactly what you need to do next. Or you talk to other people, and like a jigsaw puzzle, each person you share what you're going through brings you a piece to the puzzle.
Yes.
So thank you for showing us your wise woman and thanking her today.
Absolutely.
For her wisdom and where she has led you.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
That inner queen.
Woo, wow. And thank you to everybody who tuned in today. The Her Story Circle is not just a podcast. We are a social impact movement that brings you the stories and voices of women from all over the world. We share our stories to uplift you, to inspire you, to energize you, but most importantly, to help take you from where you are now to where you're trying to go. So if you know a woman who is feeling stuck, who knows she needs to leave, or if you are that woman, don't try and do it alone. There are experts who can help you, who can guide you. I have Dr. Sage's website at the bottom of the screen. Reach out and get the help that you need. Or if you know someone who is stuck, tag them on this video. Share this podcast and let us help and reach more women who need their assistance. So I'll be back again tomorrow, everybody, when I interview yet another amazing guest. In the meantime, have a fantastic day, morning, or evening, wherever you are in the world. And Sage, thank you again for this amazing interview.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
Bye for now, everybody. Thank you for tuning into the Her Story Circle podcast. I hope today's story has inspired you to believe in the power of our stories and the difference you can make in the world when you use your voice. I'm Gertrude Mache, and it's been an honor to share this space with you, where voices from all walks of life come together to weave a rich tapestry of diverse perspectives. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast to help us share these stories with more listeners. Follow us on social media by looking for the Her Story Circle podcast for more updates. And join us tomorrow for another episode filled with courage, resilience, and empowerment. Remember, your story matters, and together we're building a stronger, more inclusive world. Until next time, keep making her story.